Last week, I heard definitively from Green Diamond that they were not going to allow access to the 800 and 808 roads, um, in not just as they had been for years and years, sort of a very open-ended use of those roads, but also we're not inclined to allow use under the 12-hour evacuation conversation that we had been having. And so obviously disappointed by that. We had worked for a number of years to find an agreement. And I have to give credit to Loretta and her staff in Public Works over the past couple of years, as well as Tim Whitehead in the prosecutor's office, for just making every effort possible to come to an agreement that would allow folks to be able to use that road in an emergency situation. So that being said, Loretta was really prompt at pulling together a meeting with Chief Welander from Fire District, West Mason Fire, District 16, and Ross McDowell from Emergency Management, and really kind of talking through what options are available to us, and how we might be able to proceed under some of our other authorities in order to, allow for safe evacuation of the Upper Valley, and some other mitigation steps that we could take to keep people safer in a flood event. And so Ross had drafted a communication to the community out there that we can discuss. And then Loretta and Chief Welander have talked about some other things that we can do both short term this fall, and a little bit of a longer term approach to addressing some of the flooding issues. So with that, maybe I'll just kind of kick it over to Loretta and Chief Welander, and we can dive into the bulk of the conversation.
Sure. And one other bit about the community outreach as well. We are hearing several questions repeated over and over. So part of the outreach would include a frequently asked questions piece that would go along with it. And so short term, we have been looking, we're assuming that there is no use of the 800 and 808 route out. And so the short-term communication is to essentially prepare to either evacuate under road closure conditions or to be prepared to shelter in place. And we have talked about working with Chief Welander about the placement of gates at strategic locations within the valley. Valley residents have a good gauge about what is passable and what is not. But one of the challenges that the fire department has been facing are folks that are just curious or think they want to run up to Brown Creek or want to see what's going on. And that has led to some rescue situations that have been difficult to manage, to say the least. So the purpose of the gates would be to help alleviate that and reduce the number of rescues that the fire department will have to perform. Chief, sorry, I'm jumping in. Do you want to speak to that a bit?
You did fine. The purpose of the gates, really, if you look at the number of rescues we've made over the last years, very few of them have been Valley residents. They've come in from the California road because it was open, and they went down and then tried to leave through the Skokomish Valley. There's a low spot right by the George Adams hatchery, just off of 101, right by the Polly Jacobs Road, and that's a problem year after year, to the point that it's deep enough it actually flooded out our flood rescue truck, and the entire sort team had to walk out through the river. So yeah, we would really like to see a gate there. The other place that we would like to see a gate is on the bridges at Vance Creek, where it crosses under Skokomish Valley Road, and then Swift Creek where it crosses under Skokomish Valley Road. And then probably the other one that eventually I'd like to see is at the intersection of California and Ills Hill, so they can't come down the hill anymore.
Mhm.
Those are kind of the hot spots. That's going to do a few things for us. It'll keep the logging trucks from driving through. One of the big complaints from the property owners back in the back of the valley is that, why it's all closed down, but the logging trucks can keep driving through the floods. Well, they're a bigger truck. Their air intakes are higher and everything else without getting into the fancy part of it. But yeah, I think that would solve a lot of problems from our end and keep my people out of danger. So.
Hi, this is Ross. Sorry, I was here right at the beginning. I kind of popped on there. I did talk to a couple people that from out in Skoke Valley and did run it past them the idea that we were looking at for gates. And they said, well, don't be surprised if they don't get cut off or, something happens to them, because the people out there don't seem to be too happy about that, even though after I explained to them that our problem is not really the people that are out there, it's some of the other people coming through, which I believe Chief Welander is, we talked about that just recently, that a lot of times it's saving people that aren't from the area. They want to come out and see that one fish that kind of makes its way across the road and take a look out there. So a little bit about the letter, if I could. The one thing I looked at changing on the letter, instead of waiting for the National Weather Service to put out a warning, which they do not put out until 12, they try to go 12 hours before it reaches flood stage. We've known in the past that has not happened. Sometimes they give you as little as a half-hour notice for the river just coming up that quickly. So in the letter, instead of the second paragraph stating that Mason County Emergency Management and Public Works asked the Skokomish Valley residents / owners to register for Mason County Emergency Alert System to receive notifications when the Skokomish River reaches flood action stage, which is 15 feet. So that would ensure to give them time that they can get home from either work or wherever they're at to take care of business they need to do to evacuate out of the area. Or, as it states lower, they have two choices, either to stay at the residence and shelter in place or do the voluntary evacuation. Because we are not going to have that 800 road or 808 road to use. So that was one change for the letter itself.
I have another question that I was thinking about over the weekend, and I apologize for putting you all on the spot for this question. But if people evacuate as opposed to sheltering in place, what would be our ability to host an evacuation shelter type situation at DEM or at our public works facility, or with a maybe not Chief Wheelander's, but maybe District 11, just a place for people that are concerned about where they can go as they evacuate, that would be safe and have access to restrooms and facilities like that as they wait out the flooding.
Well, as we know, Red Cross they are supposedly our go-to for when it comes to any kind of an evacuation shelter. But as I put it in everything we've been doing, we need to do this ourselves. We can't wait for that or wait and hope that they do it. One of the things we're really pushing with these folks is to have a plan of action of what they're going to do. Okay, meaning that hopefully we only have to have a couple of people sheltered. If it comes down to a couple of people sheltered, Red Cross can do that through vouchers. But there seems to be a little bit of an issue here with where to go, where the folks will go, and time of day is always an issue. That we can put something together. I know when I've talked to a few people out there, they were worried right now because with COVID going on, we have to keep the 6-foot distance and all that things that go along with that. That it would be very hard to set up a shelter right now at this point. Say if it happened today, we'd have to make sure everything was COVID compliant as well as ADA compliant, as well as all the other compliance that are out there. If you just need a place for them to go and to be out of the weather and something like that, I'm sure that could be something here, or we could get with Fire District 11 and say, hey, where can we put them at? Or a couple churches, make a couple quick phone calls, and we should be able to get that to happen.
Yeah, I'd like to, if there's no objection from the other commissioners, to start kind of game planning out so that we have an alternative to offer as well for people who need to get out of the valley, who are concerned that, one of the things that we've heard at previous meetings is, I don't know how I'm going to get to my dialysis appointments, or I don't know how I'm going to do, X, Y, and Z. And so, if they're going to have to make those choices, I'd like us to game plan some alternatives to offer the community as well.
Yeah,
right. The big thing, Commissioner, that we have to really push on them is this is theirs. They have to plan. If it was their normal everyday thing, how were they going to get there themselves?
But right now, the commissioner is expressing, and I completely wholeheartedly support. We're in a situation now where they're going to be asked to do without. They're going to be in a situation, whether anybody likes it or not, where something has to be done. I think the commissioner is asking is even kind. I think we not only need to plan for it, I think we need to be prepared for implementation of it this year. If something especially does get bad, it looks like it's any type of a long-term effect. I'm supportive of Commissioner Schuette's recommendation. Even more so, I'm supportive of going further than that and starting to prepare for it. It's nice for us to have that set up in case of any other area it goes through, but this one is a likelihood this year. So I'd like to support what he's saying and say, let's move into the process of having a preparation to do it this year.
To set up a shelter and get it all ready to go?
I think there's a good possibility you're going to need it. His constituents there, know it, but at the same time, there's only so much they can do. And I can assure you, you're not going to be able to find rooms for them. It'd be nice if we could, but if we start moving out and bringing out a community out of there, we don't have the rooms.
Okay.
Is there a way that we can work with maybe some of the hotels or the tribes to maybe guarantee some rooms there? I know Chief Waylander, you were going to say a few things. So I was wondering if you wanted to go ahead and talk. Also, I do have a couple questions too. So do we know the number of residents that are down there that need, or how many people use that road that are residents?
Shy of 100.
Shy of 100? That's quite a few.
Well, you figure you got, somewhere between 50 and 70 houses back there between Bambi Farms, Skokomish Valley. There's a couple of offshoot roads, things like that. Figure a family of 4 in each one of those. So, you're in the neighborhood of 100 no matter how you do it. There's plenty of options, I suppose. If people have RVs, I would be willing to offer them temporary RV parking so they could come up here if they needed to. We do have the PUD lot. I realize I'm speaking for PUD's property on that, but there are some options. We just need, I think, to talk to people and be willing to think outside the box. If we want to do this ourselves, we've only got a handful of hotels in the community anyways. I don't know that I would want to count on the casino, because if they have a good weekend, they're going to be full. There's definitely opportunities for emergency tents out of Fort Lewis or Camp Murray. And I think if you had either a trailer or a tent per family, you're still within COVID rules. you know, getting that separation. The one thing that I can offer that's a slam dunk is I can clean all the trucks out of the station here, and if people just need a place to, maybe cook a meal, use a bathroom, grab a quick shower while we're waiting for a place to put them. West Mason Fire's got 4 different stations. 3 of them would actually be accessible at that point. Obviously, the one in the Skokomish Valley won't be, which is a whole different conversation. But we're definitely willing to work with everybody. But my caution to you would be, be prepared to think outside the box. Know that a lot of these folks do have RVs, hunting trailers, whatever. Mm-hmm. And if it's just something simple as, until we get this figured out, we find a place to park those RVs, be it at the county shop or the fire station. When they do have to evacuate, they can just go to their hunting home and, make that a temporary thing for now.
Chief, that's a wonderful idea. That I hadn't thought about the RVs and stuff. Perhaps we could even have a discussion of some COVID money, because the need for that separation may allow for COVID for some hookup for RV hookups to go out there. We might want to have conversations with the tribe, but not for their hotels, because I don't think that would be doable, to be honest with you. They're hardly ever empty in there, but they do have that event center. You also have the other building up here in Shelton for the seniors. That is a fairly large building that may be able to do some stuff if we're to contract with them. But those RV sites or hookups, that's actually a big hit. A lot of those people do have that. Right. I hadn't thought about that. That's a great opportunity, and maybe we can help the fire department there by, using some COVID monies to bring that type of hookup there.
Yeah, and your best bet on that, just for space, would be kind of that back area up at the county shop by the water tower. You're going to have enough space up there. You want to put in even if you had to put in a sewer system for the septic dumps, and open it up for that's a place they can park their RVs through the winter. Whatever, however you guys choose to do it. But I think that might be a good middle ground to keep people happy for a little bit.
Loretta, on that one there, did we lease the land or just the area just the position of the tower there? We leased that out to them, right? We didn't sell it. We leased that out to them, didn't we?
It's a lease, yeah. But where Chief Welander is talking about is not part of the lease area. It's in our yard.
But it may be a good area to use as that lease area if we have the ground available, because he's talking about being able to leave them there. That's a smart move too. Be able to park them there if it's going to be a bad winter, rather than bringing them in and out of our facility.
I have to talk to our attorney too and see what type of liability we would have.
Right, and the area where the tower is proposed to be leased is not good flat ground. So that would have some challenges as far as siting the RVs in that area.
I think
I'm meeting tonight. Oh, I'm sorry. Go ahead, Commissioner.
I was just going to say, it also kind of begs the question of how many closures a year on average do we have, and what's the average length of closure? That would help. I think help us identify what makes the most sense to offer people for a temporary shelter type situation, or what kind of makes the most sense. We know that there are going to be people that are going to shelter in place who aren't going to leave, and so, what really trying to drill down on for those very, eager to get out of there in those flood situations, or have other emergent issues that they need to consider, who may take advantage of it. How long could we potentially be, on average, would we have to, maybe provide a space, or be thinking about, those kinds of alternatives?
Yeah. So if we're talking about maybe a half dozen times a year and 2 to 3 days a pop, I think that would be a typical year.
And normally, I've been here for 6 years, and we've only had one person ever ask for help on that as far as the place. So a lot of them have family that's already here that we can have something set up, but we don't have to go over elaborate on it, but use it as a a fallback, I think would be fantastic. I'm talking tonight with one of my fellow brothers at the Masons Lodge. That lodge is, I'm going through and doing the checklist with them. That'll be actually probably one of the places that we can use, and that's right there. So they have a U-shaped driveway, which makes it great for a sea pod, and it also, they want to open up everything that they have there for the community that can use it as a shelter. So that's right in the backyard right there. They wouldn't have to go far for that one.
And that's another one where you could bring some RV hookups and maybe
Right
somebody
on.
to make that happen there.
Right, exactly.
Now, I want to remind you though, as the Commissioner Schutte was clarifying earlier, this is a different year. Yes, you've had a situation where very few had asked for help that way, but they had access. This year, you're going to have nothing. That may change things up a lot.
Well, and one of the,
Access to the road or to what?
if we put the gates up that we would like, one of the things that we have to remember is the road closures usually last a day or two on either side of when the roads are actually passable.
Right.
So you're going to have a lot of locals that are sitting there scratching their heads asking why the gates are closed when they know that they can drive their Prius or whatever they happen to own through that little chunk of water. Another place that we might want to think about, because they're already adding things like RV hookups. They have basically a convention center and great big bathroom for several people plus showers. Is the Ridge Motorsports Park. Typically, when this flooding happens, that's in their closed time of year, so that may be an option also.
Good.
Also close proximity. Yeah, that's a great idea.
Yeah, so I think there's a lot of options, and the ask, I guess, would be to narrow it down to kind of figure out what makes the most sense, that we're able to that we can get into an agreement quickly and get things established this season, and just have those recommendations ready to roll for us.
I would hope it's more than recommendation. I hope we have some things in place.
Well,
Agreements.
the easy one for my end, and because I answer the phone more than everybody else here, if they need to come put a trailer in the back of the station, we can put them in the PUD lot, and that'll get us through the bulk of it. Chances are there's only going to be a couple of them anyways, so we can offer that right now with just a verbal handshake agreement. So,
Loretta, if you wouldn't mind, please send me over an email that has an aerial of that road and circle on there the trouble spots, please.
Sure.
And also highlight the 808 road.
And I believe that there are plans already in the works for some of the areas that are well underwater. Can you kind of give us a timeline also for those repairs? And then also, have we reached out to the community to find out what their, where are they at? What are their thoughts? How can they help us help them? I think that would be a question as well.
I think
Yeah.
Matt can answer that one.
I can't tell you their thoughts on public television. Their frustration, honestly, is that and I brought this up in the meeting the other day. Their frustration is a lot of those people have been driving that 800, line 808 road since before it was really the 808. After they pulled the tracks out of it, before most of the people making the decisions, or even Green Diamond came into play. There were no gates on it. It's where I grew up. We just drove up and down the road. It was a road. It wasn't anything else. And their frustration is all of a sudden, they've had an entire life worth of planning. They've had an entire life worth of being able to get in and get out when they needed to. They always just knew that was the back way. It wasn't the evacuation route. It wasn't an emergency road. It wasn't anything. It was just a back road. And now you've got an outside company that has come in, taken over their property that they've not theirs, but the land that they've always just regarded as open public space, and they're dropping gates on both sides of it. and then they're sending their trucks down through where the roads are closed, or they're going up through what Green Diamond is saying is unsafe. So their frustration is the fact that they have planned their whole life, and now all of a sudden none of their plans work, and the double standard that Green Diamond has placed basically on their property. It's their property, and I get that, and on some level the people get that, but it is frustrating. Green Diamond tells them that the road's unsafe, but then they're sending brush pickers and log trucks up and down it all day long. So is it safe or is it not safe? And they say L&I or insurance or whatever, but does L&I know that they're putting their employees on an unsafe road? It's like I said, it's the big heartburn for them is the double standard, and the fact that they've never had a problem before that double standard came into play and before Green Diamond put gates up. They want their back road back. But at the same time, they understand there's increased use, there's increased litter, there's increased vandalism. There's gates going up all over the county. So the frustration is they did plan. They did make allowances. They did make sure that they could take care of all that stuff. And then all of their plans were jerked out from underneath them by somebody that doesn't live around here and doesn't understand the situation. So past that, I don't know what to tell you. I just know that they're looking for an answer that I don't think anybody in this little Zoom room can really answer.
Right. So would there be a way, and this is just throwing a suggestion out there, would there be a way to maybe work with Green Diamond to fix the road, bring it up to county standards, and how much would that cost, and is that even feasible? I'm just throwing things out, trying to help help our residents and help Green Diamond so that they can continue employing our people and helping our county.
Mhm. It is a possibility. That is an option. We are planning to tour the road this week and get an idea of what that might look like, Commissioner. And then also if what condition the road might be in should commissioners declare an emergency and want to utilize the road under an emergency situation. And Ross, I don't know if you want to speak to that a little bit as well.
Right. That is part of, as you remember when we did our emergency declaration for the COVID, how we left that one section in that said about entering onto private property, and we ended up taking that off of our emergency declaration for COVID because it was not needed. But that would be one where we could more or less commandeer the road, even though it's a private road. We would take on all the liability and responsibility for that road during that time. But that is something that's an option for us.
Okay.
I like having that in our pocket to be able to utilize our emergency powers. That's why they exist. And I think if we are going to establish areas for county residents to take advantage of shelter services, they are going to have a way to get out if our county road is closed. And I think utilizing our emergency powers makes a lot of sense in those circumstances. So I would encourage the commission to really consider that when we get into the rainy season further.
I have no problem considering that, Commissioner. No problem at all.
I'd like to keep our options open and see if we can find a solution. I think, some great minds can typically band together and find a good solution. So
and under that actual the wording that it states in the on the template that's been approved, it says section number 4, such authorization shall include unannounced entry and access onto and about private property where such entry or access shall not violate those constitutional privacy and property rights under an emergency declaration. So as long as we have the emergency declaration. Now, that doesn't mean that they might balk at it and they have some problems with that. I don't know that we've even announced this to Green Diamond that, you know, we could do this. We'd probably leave this as kind of a last resort, I think, to really push that point.
I would agree. I don't like the idea of using anything like that, but in this situation, it seems like a no-brainer if we come up against the brick wall on it.
Yeah.
So I'd like to have that ready.
I think that we can work together and come up with a good solution. Green Diamond wants to be a good participant, a good member of our county, and we want to protect our citizens. So I think together we can come up with a good solution.
Commissioner, you have far more hope and optimism on that than I do at this point. So I will credit you for that.
Commissioners, if I may jump in real quick, just a quickie update on a more long-term help for the valley is the DIPS work that's underway or under design at this point. And Commissioner Trask, you asked about schedule. We're planning to apply for permits around the first of the year. And that permitting process can be quite lengthy, and we're expecting at least a year to complete permit and final design. And at the earliest, we would be going to construction on that project summer of 2022. And that also assumes that we've got some funding in place ahead of when we expect to receive our FLAP funds. So, but that's what we're pushing for, is a summer of 2022 construction. And that project will allow for passage through the dips on a more frequent basis. But of course, we still have times when Eels Hill will be impassable as well. So that's our next project. And we've got several in the hopper that we'll need to continue working on to make sure that we do have resilience and ability to move in and out of the valley.
Loretta, I was looking at the maps earlier. Could you do me a favor in that that aerial that you send me? Could you show me where the issues are also on Eels Hill?
Correct. Yes.
Because that's one of the options I was looking at. But if if we run against a brick wall there too, I need to know where those are, please.
Yeah. Okay.
Are there any shorter term improvements that we could make there? You know, maybe, you know, closer to the Polly Jacobs Road and some other spots as an under an emergency permit situation. I mean, we have a lot of data from the Army Corps. We have a lot of, you know, we have a lot of anecdotal data from, you know, our own experiences. And if we're declaring emergencies, I mean, is that just for repair, or is there any way we can enter into some design and construction on projects on culverts and things like that would allow for better access in other parts of the valley, not just the dips, in a shorter term time frame?
Potentially, we'd need to figure out what those costs would look like and basically how to program that.
Mm-hmm.
But yes, the short answer, for an emergency situation, it is a potential to do that.
Okay, so I guess just what are our immediate next steps, and so we're all clear on what's going to be communicated to the public and when and how. And
we need to get that letter out. I believe that's a priority one. Get that letter.
Yeah, agreed. And Ross, we've already generated the mailing list distribution. Is that correct?
Oh, I thought you were going to say you already did. I was like, great. No, we can get that through GIS, I believe.
I was going to say, I thought we had done that. I'll double check with
Okay.
and see if we've got that generated and just get our mail merged together and.
Is there any way to cross-reference that list with who has already signed up for AlertSense?
I believe I can do that. I can get a list of who is on AlertSense already. Yeah.
That would maybe be helpful to knowing who out there is still in need of signing up to get.
Right, because one of the things we are going to put a paper with it for a sign up if they want to mail it back to us. Plus, I do have the link in the letter that they can go to that link too. But we're also going to post it up on Facebook. I think would probably be a good idea because a lot of those folks have Facebook that are out there that, you know, then they can actually use that link to just boom, make it a hyperlink for them.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
We'll just need I don't know how much we need of an approval more on that, on the letter. I don't know if all three commissioners have seen the letter. I don't believe.
Yep.
Have they?
Mhm.
They have?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, I don't know that we would necessarily need to do it from the dais. I would be comfortable with it coming directly from emergency management.
Okay. All right.
Yep, agreed.
All right. I'll get with Loretta today. Yeah. It's a long walk, but I'll get there.
No man.
The struggle.
It's a struggle, but I'll get there. Yeah.
Chief, any parting thoughts?
Oh, not really.
Well, I know I'm grateful to have you be a part of this, and you've been very helpful in understanding the situation and thinking through some solutions. So I'm grateful for your participation, Chief.
The only thing that I would say, and it's been a thing for a while, is one of the big concerns of the people in the back of the valley is, how are we going to get emergency people there? That fire station that's in the valley is right in between the two big flooded areas. And if there was any way we could relocate that back into the back end of the valley, if there's FEMA, county, I don't know where money would come from. It's not going to be from me because we don't have it. But that is something that I think the city of Tacoma mitigation funds and like that would also be available for. But I'm going to need everybody's help to get that going if that's something that we want to do, because that is one of the big concerns. And if we could put people back there when the water comes up, I think that would alleviate a lot of problems also.
You're
I think
muted.
that's something that you'd have to lead on if you would. I'd be supportive. I'm sure we can garner support from others as well, but I don't know how the county could lead that one. You'd have to.
Sure. And I don't mind leading it at all. I'm just saying it's gonna take help from everybody to secure the funds. I mean, even a cheap fire station is $500,000. So
Yeah. Well, Chief, I'm interested in having that conversation further with you and seeing if we can get rolling.
okay, thank you.
Absolutely.
Thank you, Chief Welander and Ross. Most appreciated your help and thoughts and brainstorming.
Yep, thank you guys so much. Appreciate you.
If you're done with me, I'm going to other meetings.
Thank you, Chief.
Great. Thank you.
Thanks, Chief.